Hey, what's up everybody? Devin Koretsky here. In this video I'm going to go over the most common objections that you hear in solar and give you some different ways to overcoming them. Now I have a whole bunch of files, a whole bunch of resources to help you with these, but these are just some things that I say that typically works with most homeowners. So the first objection I hear a lot is about the increasing rates, right? In the presentation, you're drilling into that concept that the rates are going to go up, especially a lot of older homeowners and retired homeowners. For some reason, I don't get it, they don't believe that. So you have to kind of talk about it a little bit more and convince them, right? So this is the one that I go to, and this is a fact, right? Ever since the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, came into existence in the 70s, right? The rates have been going up an average of 2.7% year over year over year, right? So that's just a fact, and you can Google that, you can look it up, and I can share some links with you to prove this, but they just go up, right? So I'll mention that, and hopefully they'll agree with me. I'll also mention inflation. You know, hey, Mr. Customer, everything goes up. Gas prices go up, you know, inflation increases. There isn't a commodity or there isn't a product that doesn't increase in price. Why? Let me ask you, sir, why don't you think electricity would go up right along with everything else? And then you hear what they have to say. Usually they'll be like, yeah, you're right, it's gonna go up, but not that much, just a little bit. Like, okay, well, what's the inflation rate today, sir? Do you know? Inflation's been really high lately. It's close to 2%. And then just use that in your presentation, in your pitch. Be like, okay, let's at least say it's going to keep up with inflation. Would you agree with that, sir? Yes. And then that's going to be close to 2%, and you can use that if they're being really hard-nosed about it. You also want to go into what's going on as a whole in the country, right? So explain to them what happened, and they probably know about this, but explain to them, like, hey, in 2012, the Obama administration, they decided America needs to be more environmentally friendly, right? So they shut down 50% of America's coal-producing plants, right? So these utility companies, they had to redo their infrastructure, and make the shift over renewables, and that's extremely expensive. I mean, sir, do you think the utility companies pay for all that infrastructure change and all those changes that they have to make to get electricity to all the homeowners? Who do you think has to pay for it? They're going to say the consumer every time. We have to pay for it, Mr. Customer. So I tell them about that. I tell them about the increased demand, right, in Texas. Like, sir, have you noticed, and I'll ask them, sir, have you noticed, how many people are moving into Texas? Usually people have strong opinions about this, right? And they will tell you their opinions. Exactly. So wouldn't you agree that the demand for electricity has been going up? And then they'll say yes, and be like, hey, well, what happens when demand goes up? I mean, what happens when the demand goes up for electricity? Wouldn't the prices go up as well? And they're going to agree with you, right? It's just common sense. So those are some great ways to overcome the objection of not believing in the increasing rates, because that's extremely important, especially in Texas, that the consumer understands what is happening, right? So I hope that helps with that objection. Another objection is I need to think about it. There's another video, the uncertainty script video, which I like to apply to this. I think it's great, but there's a couple other ways you can handle it. You can simply ask them, hey, what exactly do you need to think about? And see what they say. Hopefully they'll give you something specific, and then you can overcome that specific objection. Or a lot of times I will say, I hear this from a lot of my customers, usually it's one of three things that they need to think about. Of course, you always agree with them. It's very important that you follow the steps to overcoming objections, and I'll go over that now. I should have started with this. So when someone gives you an objection, the first thing you do is put them at ease. Right? So if you immediately drill into overcoming that objection, it's going to be hard to do that without them feeling threatened in some sense, or a little uncomfortable, or like you're being argumentative. So you need to shut that down right away. So how do you do that? You agree with them. So when you get an objection, you say, hey, I totally agree. It makes sense why you'd think A, B, and C, right? Totally feel you on that. It is expensive, or yeah, I see why you wouldn't think the rates would go up, whatever it is. So first you agree with it, and then you isolate the objection. Right? Like, and you make sure that that's the true objection, right? You figure out if there's anything else other than that objection that's going to be holding them back. Hey, other than you need to think, so you say, other than you needing to think about it, or other than you need to talk to your wife, other than the price being too high, is there anything else holding you back that would prevent you from moving forward with solar? And then you see what they say. So you isolate the objection and then you overcome it. So I wanted to throw that in there. But let's get back to the I need to think about an objection. So I say, guys, once I agree with them, then I isolate it. Other than you need to think about it, right? Is there anything else that's holding you back from moving forward with solar? And I say, no, I just need to think about it. Okay. Well, most of the time, Mr. Customer, my customers need to think about one of three things. The first thing is whether they think, solar is going to benefit them. I mean, are you having trouble comprehending the benefits of solar and whether it's going to help you in your situation? You see what they say, right? Usually they'll be like, no, I see how it's going to save me money. I see this, that. You're like, okay, great. I'm glad you think it's going to benefit you. I think it's going to benefit you as well. The other thing they need to think about is whether they feel comfortable with me, the salesperson, and the company. Do you feel comfortable doing business with me and that everything I'm saying is actually going to come into fruition? And you see what they say with that. Maybe they'll say, no, I'm worried about this or that. And then you address those specific things, and then you reclose them. Most of the time, they're going to be like, no, I'm comfortable with you, Devin. You seem like an honest guy. I know your company seems great, right? Okay, well, the third thing, Mr. Customer, is the price. There's usually, and the most common thing, Mr. Customer, is there's something that, involved in the price that you're uncomfortable with. Is there anything involved in the price that you're not happy with or comfortable with that's preventing you from moving forward? And see what they say. A lot of times it's the monthly payment, it's the total price, it's the fact that they have a loan, whatever it is, you want to isolate that and then overcome it, right? So let's take the payment, right? If they say, oh, the monthly payment's too high, then you need to overcome that and reclose. So typically what I say in this instance, if it's the monthly payment, I will say something along the lines of, well, sir, your monthly payment now is $175, and how much are you paying for electricity? And it should be around the same. They'll be like, oh, like $170. Okay, great. So all you're doing, sir, is swapping out that $170 payment, that bill that you're paying now to the utility company that's constantly increasing and has no end date. You're simply swapping out, and remember that rent payment that we talked about? You're simply swapping that out for a payment to your solar system, right? So you're not paying any more money per month, right? It just, instead of throwing that money away to the utility company, you're putting that money towards a power producing asset and paying off a solar system that's going to give you free electricity one day. Does that make sense? And then see what they say. And then hopefully that will kind of reiterate, the importance of doing that, and then you reclose, and then you ask for the business again. Like, okay, great, sir. Well, let's get started with this qualification process and get this loan approved for you, okay? If they talk about the total price of the system, right, and they're like, oh, well, I don't want to pay $30,000 for solar. Well, sir, how much are you paying in electricity? And that's when you break down how much money they're paying for electricity with no return on investment. Be like, you're worried about $30,000, but sir, if you stay and bring them back to that graph that we show in the presentation, which shows them how much money they'll be spending and throwing away to the utility company, you're like, sir, well, $30,000 is nothing compared to the $60,000 that you'll be spending to the utility company. At least after you pay this $30,000, you own your electricity and are creating free electricity, instead of paying $60,000 to the utility company and then having nothing to show for it. Does that make sense? See, $30,000 doesn't seem like too much money, does it? Okay, let's get you approved. Let's get you moving forward. And if they still don't want to do it, be like, reiterate. Sir, do you remember the equity that you're building in the house? Do you remember what we discussed? And then ask them, do you remember how much that study we reviewed build to equity per kilowatt hour? And then they will say, Yeah, I remember it was $5,900 per kilowatt. I'm sorry, not kilowatt hour, kilowatt. And then you break it down. Well, sir, your system is an 8 kilowatt system. What's 8 times 5,900? Have them do the math for you. And then they'll say, that's about like $42,000 or something. So, sir, according to the study, you're getting $42,000 in equity added to your home on day one before you even make your first payment. So the system's essentially paying for itself. Does that make sense? Yes, it makes sense, Devin. Okay, well, let's get you approved for this loan here. So that's a way that you overcome the price. Now let's talk about the fact that they don't want to do a loan. You simply remind them, well, sir, I understand you don't want to do a loan, but you're on an endless loan with the utility company. That never ends. That goes up year after year after year after year. At least with this, yeah, you're on a loan, but you're locking in a low loan payment, right? And then one day, you're off of it. With the utility company, your loan never ends. I mean, imagine if your mortgage lender came to you and said, hey, I got one loan for you here, Mr. Koretsky, right? It's at 3% and it's a 30-year loan. And then they said, oh, here's another loan. It goes up 3% every year and you never pay it off. I mean, which one would you choose? Right? So these are just some ways you explain to the homeowner to really get it in their head why this is such a great financial benefit to them. It's a new concept, it's a new idea. So homeowners come up in their head like, oh, it's a loan, I don't like it. Oh, it's a lot of money. But they don't really think through what they're saying. So it's our job as consultants to help them think through it and see the truth that, hey, you're going to be saving a ton of money if you go solar compared to the alternative, which is continuing to rent your electricity. So those are a bunch of reasons, a bunch of things you can discuss with the homeowner to get over that I need to think about it objection, right? Another objection I hear a lot is I need to talk to my spouse, right? If for some reason, and I usually don't advise doing this, you're just sitting down with the husband or the wife and then you need to talk to their significant other. A lot of times this could just be like a smoke screen, right? A way for them to get a few days from you to think about it or get you out of their house, right? And then you'll just simply say like, hey, well, I'm sure before you met with me, like you talked to your wife about this, right? Most people will say yes, right? It's a big meeting, it's important. And it'll be like, well, what did you guys discuss? What did you guys come up with? And then usually, or hopefully they'll say like, oh, we discussed this, and we wanted this. And then hopefully you can provide what they discussed. And then you can say, okay, well, if I can give you this, which is what you said your wife wants and would be happy with, then we can wrap this up right now. And then hopefully they'll say yes, and then you can close the deal. Or you can ask them, well, if your wife was here, your husband was here, what do you think they'd say to this offer? And then a lot of times when you ask that question, the true objection will come up. And the customer will say, oh, well, they'll say the payment's too high. And then you could address that in the ways we just discussed and overcome that and close the deal. So those are some ways to overcome the spouse objection. Another common objection is, I'm not making a decision, I'm not ready to make a decision right now. And then a lot of times how I overcome that is I'll say, hey, I totally understand. It's a big decision. Usually when people say that, it's because I didn't cover something in as much detail as I should have, and I apologize. What about this isn't quite clear, and what don't you know enough about to make a decision? And then see what they say, and then talk to them about that, and then reclose. So those are the most common objections that I get. So I hope this helps you overcome those and gives you some things to think about and talk about your homeowners to close the deal when you're in a home. So thanks for listening.